We're looking at 6 cards of elevated offers, Points Boost is getting a major update, and we might be seeing new airline cards and potentially a new flagship. This and more in today's roundup. Big favor before we dive into everything is to give this a thumbs up to help with the algorithm. Even though someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Starting off, we have the Chase Sapphire Reserve, which has a historic high offer. You're going to get 150k bonus points after 6,000 spent on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. For the value of the points, it depends on how you're using them. For cash back into your Chase account or as a statement credit, it's 1 cent per point, so 150k times 1 cent is 1,500 in value, and then if you divide that by 6,000 spend, that's 25% return on spend. That's our baseline. With Points Boost, it depends on the property, but you're looking at 1.5 to 2.5 cents per point, which is 2,250 in value, upwards to 3,750. So 37.5 to 62.5% return on spend. We'll get a bit more into this, but you're arguably looking at 1.5 to 2.5, but not really 2 anymore. My go-to is still transfer partners, and I target 2 cents per point, so I'd want about 3,000 in value or more, and that's about 50% return on spend. If you're going for this, let me know how you're using the bonus points. Reminder that Chase did change the eligibility rules, so the new card member bonus may not be available to you if you've previously had this card or got a new card member bonus for it. It also does have a big sticker price, so you're looking at a $7.95 annual fee, but you also have a ton of credits. I'd be careful to ignore the ones that you don't actively use or care about. So for example, I don't really value DoorDash, but I do like the dining credit. StubHub is pretty easy to use given how it works, and if you're into concerts, shows, or sports. For the everyday section, a lot of people seem to like Apple TV, and I get value from Lyft, so that's easy, but I do ignore Peloton though. Annual travel credit is super easy, and Hotel One is a bit more annoying, but not bad at all this year, given the additional up to $250 for their partners, which include IHG hotels and resorts. If you're looking to run the numbers, we do have a calculator that I'll link down below. It should also pop up if you Google Ask Sebi CSR worth it. Yeah, run the numbers for your situation and discount the credits you won't use and see if you come out ahead. Worst case, it's a great way to try some perks like lounge access to see if you like it and basically give it a full test drive. Given how the credits work, the math is in your favor, and you can always downgrade in year 2 if you change your mind. This includes no annual fee options like the Chase Freedom Unlimited or Chase Freedom Flex, or the Chase Sapphire Preferred card if you're looking to keep transfer partners. On a side note, if you are someone that wants to learn about cards and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website, asksebi.com, and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, that they make sense for you, but otherwise it's a huge way to support the channel, so thank you in advance. Speaking of increased offers, we have the Costco Anywhere Visa card by Citi. This is warehouse only, and you're going to get a free tumbler. So I saw it over this past weekend. For a lot of people, this does beat the prior offers, like a free case of water, but it's still not a historic high. Back in 2024, they offered a $75 statement credit after you spent $1,500 in purchases within the first 3 months from account opening. 75 divided by 1,500 is 5% return on spend. I still don't have the card, but people seem to love it, but curious about your thoughts on this increased offer. Next up, we have the United Explorer card. You're going to earn up to 80,000 bonus miles after 3,000 spent on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. I'll show an example in a second, but it pretty much covers a long-haul United business class flight to either Europe or Asia, and if you are looking to do the new product, then you're looking at Singapore or London. Note that the 80k is broken down into 70k for spend and 10k for adding an authorized user within that period. There's no fee for adding an authorized user, so very little downside risk. The card has a $0 intro annual fee for the first year, and then it's $150. You also get a ton of credits, and the most tangible would be United Hotels and also rideshare. Also, the first checked bag perk is nice. One other benefit is access to better reward rates. For example, this is San Francisco to Singapore, which is a 17-hour flight, and as a card member, you're looking at 85k miles, and without the card, it's 250k miles. This logic also applies to partners. Let's say you want to fly ANA, but you don't want to book directly due to fuel surcharges skyrocketing. If you book through United, it's 100k miles and about $6 in fees with a card. For most people, that 10k difference means that one redemption covers the annual fee. The main idea of points and miles is that you want optionality, that way you can be flexible. If it's not a fit after year 1, then United personal cards have a no annual fee downgrade path. Next up, we have the United Quest card. You're going to earn up to 100,000 bonus miles and 3,000 PQPs, premier qualifying points, after 4,000 spent on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. 90Ks from spend and 10Ks from adding a no-cost authorized user. The last intro bonus effectively covered a United Metal flight, and this one would cover long-haul partner business class. Also, just doing a heat check, but would you rather fly United Business for $85K or ANA Business for $100K? Even if both were the new product, I think I'd still go for ANA. Back to the card, it has a $350 annual fee and also credits. The easiest ones for me to value are the $200 in United Travel Cash, the up to $150 in renowned hotels and resorts, and the up to $100 for rideshare purchases. Having first and second checked bag is nice as well, especially for skiing. Same downgrade path if needed, but it's a keeper card in my book, and I still have it. Also, if the credits feel annoying, ignore the ones that you don't care about and track the rest on Cardonomics. This is pretty much a to-do list or tracker for your credits to make life easier. As someone with a lot of cards, this makes juggling them a lot more manageable. Check it out and let me know what you think and any other features we should add. Next up is the United Club card, where you're getting up to 110K bonus miles and 3,000 PQPs after 5,000 spent on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. The breakdown here is 100K base and then 10K for an authorized user. Surprisingly, there's no authorized user fee for this flagship card. At the same time, there's also not really any tangible benefits. For example, one of the key benefits is getting United Club membership for the main member, but that doesn't pass to authorized users. The card does have a $695 annual fee, but a lot of people treat it as a cheaper way to buy the membership instead of paying $750. Beyond that, you also get a ton of credits, and for me, the up to $200 for renowned hotels and resorts, and the up to $150 for rideshare would be the main draw. The last one here is the United Business card. You're going to get up to 110K bonus miles and 2,000 PQPs after 5,000 spent on purchases in the first 3 months from account opening. There is a $150 annual fee, but also a ton of credits, including up to $100 for rideshare, up to $100 for United Hotels, and $125 United Travel Credit for making 5 United flight purchases of $500 or more in a calendar year with the card. For a lot of people, it can easily be a keeper. Moving to Points Boost, we have an interesting situation. We talked about it at the top of the video, but it's a way to get elevated value above the standard cashback rate, but without having to deal with the nuances of transferring to partners and award travel. That means that sometimes you're getting the same value, let's say 2 cents per point, for no additional work. This did replace the old 1.5 cents per point model, but that was for everything, while this is more meant for premium redemptions. Think United or American Business Class, or fancy partner hotels like Park Hyatt. We are seeing an interesting shuffle. So Chase just increased the value of Points Boost to 2.5 cents per point, but for only 11 hotels. It sounds good, but there's a lot going on under the hood. The ones that are elevated though somehow include a few that we've been to or debated going to. This includes the Four Seasons Osaka, Grand Hyatt Deer Valley, and Ritz-Carlton Portland. I can't speak for all of them, but the latter two are kind of struggling. Portland tourism is down, and this is one of the more expensive hotels in the city. So I'm guessing they're looking to fill rooms strategically. Also, as someone that lives in San Francisco, who's used to rough edges, I find Portland a bit shady. I feel like with SF, there's at least more foot traffic. Grand Hyatt Deer Valley is in a weird spot, so it was a bad snow year, which didn't help, but the whole East Village still kind of looks like a construction site. Four Seasons Osaka is on the list though, and one that I'm excited for. It does depend on price obviously, but let's say 21,000 points wouldn't be bad at all for one of the best hotels in Osaka. Let me know if I'm alone here, but I'd be more than happy for Chase to add Four Seasons across the board at that 2.5 cents rate. That would actually be a game changer. Okay, so all of this sounds good. What's the catch? A lot of people aren't happy with this weird dynamic nature, and they'd rather have fixed partners and guaranteed rates. I'm actually fine with dynamic, but 11 isn't that many. Given how many card members there are, I'd expect a list of 100 maybe, and to be fair, they could be growing out that list. Also, with this new change, the 2 cents per point that people were getting for United and American Airlines premium cabins is back down to earth, and now shifted to Delta. Delta only seems to be up to 1.75, so a bit of a downgrade. It sounds like they are trying to figure out the best plan to make something people like and get value from, but also still financially viable. Maybe an interesting middle ground, but I'd be more than happy for them to drop it back down to 1.5 cents per point, but only specifically for their co-branded partners, so make it all the hotels and all the flights. They could still do that dynamic stuff for other partners up to 2.5 cents per point. Yeah, that feels like the best of both worlds where you're getting your cake and eating it too. As much as I like optimizing and going to Michelin key hotels on the other side of the world, a lot of people just want something straightforward. They want value, but without the hoops. I'd be curious what you think makes sense and what you'd want Points Boost to become. The last story is Alaska and Bank of America expanding their partnership. There's a few parts here. The main point is consolidation of Atmos Rewards credit cards towards a single issuer. They're pretty much talking about one airline, Hawaiian. At the moment, there's Hawaiian Airlines cards from the Bank of Hawaii in partnership with Barclays, which still earn Atmos Rewards points. Most of us can't apply though. The Bank of Hawaii branded version of the Hawaiian Airlines MasterCards are only available to applicants in Hawaii. So the final step here is Bank of America buying up the portfolio of Hawaiian cards from Barclays. With this, Bank of America and Alaska expect an expansion of the card portfolio and probably more options. Let's take a look at the Bank of America options. You have two ranges, the mid-level at $95 and then the flagship at $395. You also do have a mid-level business card. Pretty easy here. In terms of multipliers, all of them make sense for your Alaska and Hawaiian purchases, and the flagship is pretty worthwhile for dining as well as foreign transactions. The mid-level options have gas, EV charging, local transit, and rideshare at 2x. The personal mid-level has streaming at 2x, while the business one has 2x on shipping. Looking at this, the most obvious weak spots are groceries across the board, and also dining for the mid-level cards, and 2x here feels more than reasonable. There also are a lot of other perks. For example, the flagship card has lounge perks for Alaska lounges, which is nice, and also aggressive spend incentives if you're putting $60K a year on the card. Okay, so they're merging these two portfolios. The main problem is that Hawaiian is very similar. So on their end, they're all effectively mid-level cards, and you get dining and gas for all of them. On the personal side, you have groceries and office supply stores on the business side. I think they could consolidate these and it would make sense. So take the current Ascent card and add groceries and dining at 2x. For the business card, they could add in dining and office supply stores. If they want to expand their portfolio, I'd probably start with a no annual fee card. So they have Summit and Ascent. The most logical name would be Basecamp. They also could add a premium card between the mid-level and the flagship. Think $250 annual fee. Another option, which makes a bit more sense to me, would be a super flagship, which includes a full Alaska membership instead of just 8 visits, and it'd probably do decently well. This would match American and also United. So currently the standard lounge membership is $595 a year, and Lounge Plus is $795, but that also includes 90 partner lounges. At the moment, it includes all American Airlines Admiral Club lounges, and also some Qantas and United clubs when flying eligible carriers. They could probably add a $595 annual fee card and just add credits, and people would flock to it. If you're already paying $595, that means that if you use any of the credits, you'd already be in the win column. No annual fee could be Basecamp, they have Ascent and Summit, and top level could be Peak or Stratosphere. I feel like those are pretty good names, but let me know if there's anything better that would still fit the schema. On the business side, I expect a flagship, so something targeting the very high spending business owners. If they want to make a play in the space, I think shipping as well as advertising would be the two main categories. One big consideration is that Alaska is still quite behind the big four in terms of passengers carried, so I do wonder if they're getting a bit carried away with the credit card expansion. Probably not a fair comparison, but the whole Spirit situation does have me spooked. There's a lot of factors that led to their downfall, but a big one is overexpansion. Alaska is aggressively trying to grow, especially outside of the US. We've seen Incheon Korea and Narita Tokyo added, and now also Europe in the mix. Seattle as a hub has also worked out surprisingly well for Asia. Of the mainland cities, it comes in 4th behind LA, San Francisco, and New York. On a per capita basis, it looks even better, moving it up to number 3. At the same time, a lot of their domestic routes have been struggling. They have been smart about cutting these non-profitable options, but yeah, overexpansion is always a big risk in the space. The flip side of it is that it makes sense to make hay when the sun's shining. Again, if you want to learn about cards, we have links on the website, asksebby.com, and also down below in the description box. And if you're curious, all legal affiliate disclosures can also be found below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a mountain emoji in the comments down below, and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, which intro bonuses are you working on, or which cards are you adding? Number 2, do you like when bank points are more dynamic, or would you rather something static? Number 3, what would you like to see from Alaska and their cards? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.